Welcome back to another episode of Freelance Friday. Today, we're going to go through all of the social media headlines that matter most to marketers, entrepreneurs, and content creators, starting with TikTok. I have heard from many marketers and content creators that TikTok engagement just isn't what it used to be, and some of that is completely understandable, right? I mean, when a lot of people really took off on TikTok, we were all under lockdown and we were all kind of just at home, bored, scrolling. So some of that makes sense. But a recent report from a company called Amplify, it's their social media benchmarks report, showed that Instagram continues to beat TikTok for organic video views. And this is a trend that it's maintained since the beginning of 2022. TikTok's organic engagement has continued to drop, down by 39% in Q4 2023 compared to Q1 2022. So, does that mean that we should all rush to get off TikTok? No, not necessarily, but I think this is just speaking to what we're seeing of TikTok really struggling to keep up. They really led the cultural conversations. They led all of the trend conversations for such a long time. But when it came time to figure out how they're going to really monetize, meaning how they themselves, the platform, is going to make money, but also how they're going to do so in a way that compensates creators, I think that's where they're running into some roadblocks and it's impacting engagement. TikTok Shop has been pretty notorious for driving people away from the platform. A lot of people are saying, oh, TikTok just feels like an advertisement or, like an infomercial nowadays. So we will have to continue to watch and see what they choose to do to, hopefully bring that engagement back while still making some money. With that said, TikTok has said that the creator revenue has increased by 250% through their new revamped creator fund. We talked about this a few episodes back, that they got rid of their original creator fund, which was this $1 billion fund meant for creators, and they replaced it with a creativity fund, and they're saying that it's working. So as the program exits beta, it's now being renamed to Creator Rewards Program. And unlike the original Creator Fund, the new program rewards creators for longer content as it rewards users who make videos longer than 1 minute. Again, we're speaking to this trend or this idea of TikTok looking to monetize their content with ads. And it's a lot harder, I think, to advertise on a very short video. People are just going to get tired of seeing ad after ad after ad. So they really are trying to incentivize these longer creators or longer form upload creators to post. And with that said, there is also another proposed TikTok ban being weighed in the US government. And the White House has actually thrown its support behind this bill. Now, the bill is a bipartisan bill, meaning people from both parties, both sides of the aisle, are agreeing on this. So the bipartisan legislation would require ByteDance, which is the company that owns TikTok, to sell the app TikTok because of national security concerns about the way it uses and stores data, or face a ban. This has been a thing for quite some time. We had a big TikTok ban scare that went, pretty far as the CEO coming out to Washington to speak with legislators not too long ago. So this is absolutely something that people are watching. This article from NPR says the White House has long expressed concern about the national security risks of TikTok. And in 2022, Biden signed a bill that banned the app on government phones. What do you think? Let me know if you are concerned about security features on TikTok. Are you worried about how they're using our data? Are you feeling like people are really overreacting here? I want to know your thoughts on it. I certainly have my own, but I want to hear yours. LinkedIn. Let's talk about LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is actually leaning a little bit more into news and journalism nowadays, which is interesting because we'll talk about this in a minute, but we're seeing some of the other platforms really shy away from this. Curious. Now we'll get into some more on some of the other platforms and how they're handling journalism and news, but first, I want to take a second to tell you about a new resource that has just come out from our friends Metricool. You all know that I love Metricool. It's my favorite social media scheduling tool, analytics tool. You can always use my code Latasha to get 30 days free on any of their pro plans. I'll leave a link for you down in the show notes. But they've also just released a LinkedIn study that analyzes a bunch of different accounts on LinkedIn and gives you everything you need to know to be successful as a creator or as a marketer on the platform today. So I'll leave a link down below, both for the full LinkedIn study, as well as a link to sign up for Metricool. You can use my code Latasha for 30 days free on any of their pro plans. So LinkedIn is embracing news and journalism. Meta, not so much. Meta is getting rid of the news tab in the US and Australia. This comes after they said they would eliminate it in the UK, France, and Germany, so it's gone away pretty much everywhere. A representative for Facebook said that eliminating the news tab is part of an ongoing effort to better align our investments to our products and services people value the most. As a company, we have to focus our time and resources on things people tell us they want to see more of on the platform, including short-form video. No big surprise there. Meta has really seemed to want to distance themselves from news and politics. We've also heard from Adam Mosseri, the head of Instagram and Threads, saying that they really don't want to put too much emphasis on news on Threads, even though Threads is kind of like the replacement for Twitter, which, as we all know, Twitter is the home for journalists and news. So it's an interesting choice. You know, Meta was in hot water a few election seasons ago for having a lot of misinformation and, quote, fake news on the platform. So I think this is their way of kind of trying to distance themselves from that. And also, yeah, I think maybe does it speak to a broader trend of how people are feeling about news and politics nowadays? I don't know. I think maybe people are just a little bit burnt out and go to social media as a form of escapism. Now, speaking of Adam Mosseri, head of Instagram, he recently posted a poll on his own Threads account, which I found very interesting. He asked, "I think we should move to automatically archive posts on Threads after a month or so. Curious what others might prefer." 83% of the people who responded, there were 5,277 votes, 83% of those folks said never. One of the Threads users who responded said, "If the plan was ever for posts to be deleted, it would have been very nice to know that up front. I'll pause on building a profile and community here until we get clear confirmation this will not be happening. You cannot get to know people based only on recent posts, and until I read this, actually getting to know people seemed like the strongest part of Threads." I found this to be a very kind of out of left field idea. It's sort of this combination of Threads or Twitter and stories, Instagram stories, this idea of having them disappear after a period of time. I don't understand the intention behind this besides maybe, I don't know, saving bandwidth. I have no idea how that actually works on the back end of social media platforms. I don't want that. Do you want that? Do you want your Threads post to disappear after a month? I think that's weird, but you know, I guess there could be benefits to it. Now, in better meta news, over to Instagram. I talked an episode or two ago about how Instagram is now allowing you to turn off read receipts, which surprisingly garnered quite a response. A lot of people felt very strongly that this was dishonest or that they weren't excited about it, which I was really surprised about. It brought up about a really interesting conversation that I had over on Instagram. If you have not said hi to me over on Instagram, I'm at the Latasha James. That's where I do a lot of chatting in my stories about some of these topics in between episodes. But in addition to that, they are now letting you edit DMs. So I'm really curious to hear what people think about this. If you thought read receipts were dishonest, how do you feel about an edit button for messages? Now, previously on Instagram, you could unsend a message, and I would do this all the time. I would read back through my message and realize I misspelled something or shared a wrong link, so I'd copy and then I'd unsend and then I'd edit and then resend, which is a little bit of a pain, but they're reducing that friction there and just creating the edit button. So you can go in within 15 minutes and just manually edit. The message will show the person that you're messaging that it has been edited, but they cannot see what has been edited. I think overall this is nice. Of course, there will be some people who use it dishonestly, of course, but overall I think it's nice for just quick little typos and things like that, but curious what you think. And another feature that actually this has come out quite a while ago. I believe I started hearing about it maybe in December or January, but I just got access to it, which is this suspected spam followers feature. So if you open up your Instagram and you click on followers on your own account, there should be a message, a little dialog box that pops up that says, we've suspected X number of spam followers. Would you like to remove them? Mine, I think, saw about 83 spam followers, and I just clicked on remove, and it removed them all automatically from my follower list. Now, I am curious if any of you have experienced this as well, but I actually had a couple of people. One, I scanned through the list myself before clicking remove, and I did see a couple of people who looked very much like real people. They just kind of had inactive accounts or something like that, like they hadn't logged on in a while. But I also had somebody message me and say, hey, we're not following each other anymore. Is there a reason why? And I realized I think that's what happened. I think she got lost in that mix. And so I don't know that that tool is perfect yet. And I would definitely encourage you, if you're going to use it, to scan through the list before just clicking remove like I did, because I ended up removing some people who I think were real people. Reddit has struck a deal, a $60 million deal, allowing Google to train AI models on its posts. So this deal allows Google to use discussions on its site for training its artificial intelligence models to improve services such as Google Search. The arrangement is valued roughly at $60 million and will also give Reddit access to Google AI models for improving its own internal site search and other features. I saw some really funny memes about this when this was first announced, just because Reddit has been known as being like probably the most casual social platform, sometimes the most silly, the most kind of offbeat and quirky. And so a lot of people were like, we're going to have our AI is going to start talking really weird and giving off really strange advice. This article from NBC says that the data sharing agreement is also highly significant for Google, which is hungry for access to human written material it can use to train its AI models. And in some kind of random news that I think is relevant to most of us, the Supreme Court is taking on two cases that could change the face of social media moderation. So there's two. There's Moody versus NetChoice and NetChoice versus Paxton. These cases are meant to decide whether or not certain social media laws from states like Florida and Texas have violated First Amendment rights by compelling companies to host speech even when they don't want to. These laws were passed in 2021 after former President Donald Trump was ousted from mainstream platforms after January 6th. And a lot of people are claiming that his removal from these platforms is a form of social media censorship. So what the court has to decide is whether social media is more like a newspaper, which has the freedom to exercise editorial judgment, or if they're more public forums, public platforms, like a shopping mall, for instance, that serve as gathering places for the public and can be made to host demonstrations. If it's the latter, laws that, allow people to be removed for censorship type reasons would not be able to take place. They would be a violation of First Amendment rights. I'm curious what you think. Let's keep it respectful and kind in the comments, but I would love to hear which kind of side of that you're on. I'm not asking about your political views. I'm just curious from a social media perspective. Do you believe that the social media platforms should be able to remove people or not? And lastly, Apple Podcasts is going to include transcripts on the podcasting platforms now, which is pretty cool. So Apple Podcasts will auto-generate transcripts for podcasts. Thanks to a recent update for iPhones and iPads, the transcripts will automatically appear for new podcast episodes shortly after their publication. And the podcast transcripts are searchable, allowing users to type in specific words or phrases and skip to that part of the episode. Spotify has had something for a while, I believe, so good news for any of you who listen to Freelance Friday on the podcasting apps. If there's just a particular platform or story you want to skip ahead to, you can apparently now use your podcast player to just skip through the transcript and find that. I also always try to add timestamps to the description and the show notes, but pretty cool. So let me know what you think of all of these stories, or if there's anything else on your mind from the past month or so on social. I always love to hear from you in the comments, and I appreciate you being here today. Thanks so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.